All right, so we've talked about opportunity cost, the most valuable thing you give up when you decide to do something. Now I want to go ahead and show you a graphical representation of opportunity costs. And this is called a PPC, or a production possibilities curve. And it's also called a production possibilities frontier. All right, so PPC is, once again, a production possibilities curve. It's a graph showing all of the possible combinations of output for an economy fully employing all of its resources and producing only two goods. Okay, so it's a simplification because this country is choosing between making two goods. All right, so this production possibilities frontier, also known as production possibilities curve, it is a graph that shows all possible combinations of two goods when an economy is producing at full potential. It assumes that technology is being maximized. You're at full employment, 5.5% unemployment rate going on there. You have an efficient use of resources. All those things are going on when you are at full potential. Now, it does not actually show reality since it assumes only two goods are being produced, and most countries are going to make more than two goods. It is a simplification that shows what sort of trade-offs would be made in reality, and it only shows what can be produced, not necessarily what would be consumed. So let's go ahead and take a look at the construction of a production possibilities curve here. All right, so once again, a production possibilities graph or curve shows alternative ways that an economy can use its resources. So what we have here is we have a production possibilities graph, and we have a country that's choosing between making watermelons and making shoes. Those are the only two goods they can make, and they have to trade off between making those two goods. So what we have is a graph here. On our y-axis, we have shoes in millions of pairs. On our x-axis, we have watermelons in millions of tons. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and make a graph here. We're going to make a production possibilities curve. So with our chart here, we're going to go ahead and have one possible combination of watermelons and shoes, and that is 0 watermelons and 15 shoes. And then we go ahead and graph that on, you can see point A, 0, 15, where we have 0 watermelons and we have 15 million shoes. Another possible combination that this country can make is 8 million watermelons, 14 million shoes. We can go ahead and graph that on our graph there. That's point B, 8 million watermelons, 14 million shoes. And then we can do various other combinations. But you can see there, when you draw a smooth curve through all of those possible points, you have what's called a production possibilities frontier. So we're looking at all the different combinations of watermelons and shoes that this country can make when they are fully maximizing their resources. Now, one thing I do want you to notice, as we go from 0 watermelons, 15 million shoes, to 8 million watermelons to 14 million shoes, as we make 8 million more watermelons, we're giving up 1 million shoes. As we go on to the next point of the chart, from 8 million watermelons to 8 million watermelons, 14 million shoes, to 14 million watermelons and 12 million shoes, let's move from B to C, for example, we're giving up 2 million shoes in order to make the watermelons. And if you continue to do that, you can see that as you move from the next point, you'll go from 12 to 9, so you're giving up 3 million shoes. Then as you go from 9 to 5, you're giving up 4 million shoes. So as you can see, the opportunity cost, what you're giving up as you produce more and more watermelons, is going up. Okay, as you produce more and more watermelons, you're giving up more and more shoes. And whenever you have a curved production possibilities curve, This is going to be a production possibilities curve that has increasing opportunity costs. The opportunity cost is increasing as you're making more and more watermelons. Okay? Now, if you have a production possibilities curve that is straight, that is not curved, that production possibilities curve has what's called a constant opportunity cost. So you have constant opportunity cost production possibilities curves, which are straight. You have increasing opportunity cost production possibilities curves, which are actually curved. Right. So it's important to understand that as you move from point to point on a production possibilities curve or production possibilities frontier, that you're trading off between making two goods. And so let's look at a production possibilities frontier for a country called Alpha. And Alpha is trading off between making two different things, guns and butter. Lots of times students find that as a funny combination. Butter kind of represents domestic goods and guns represents military goods. And so sometimes societies have to trade off between making those things. And so oftentimes economists like to use those as examples of what might be on the axis of a production possibilities curve, guns and butter. So, but anyway, you have a society deciding between making guns and butter. And this frontier is going to show the limit of what can be produced, all possible combinations that can be created when all resources are being fully utilized. So for example, you could have a point like the point you see right there, where all resources are being used to produce guns. No butter is being made here. 1,500 guns are being made here. You could have a point like the point that just popped up at 2,000. And there, all resources are being used to produce butter. You've got 2,000 butter being created. You've got no guns. Or you could have a point on the production possibilities curve like that one right there, where you have 1,100 guns being made and 1,500 butter being made. So you can see as you move from point to point to point, all you're really doing is trading off between making guns and butter. You're choosing between different combinations that can be made when resources are being maximized. So at point A, and any point actually on the frontier, production is going to be efficient. Okay, the country is efficiently using its resources if they are producing at a point that is on the production possibilities curve. So at this point, you're going to have full employment, you're going to have productive efficiency. Any point like B, that's inside the frontier, is inefficient. Resources are not being maximized. You're not at full employment. Okay, the resources are not fully being utilized. You might be in recession, for example, when you're at point B. Okay, that is a point that is inefficient. If you see a curve that, a point that is outside of the production possibilities frontier, that point is going to be impossible to achieve with existing resources because they don't have enough resources to achieve any point outside of the production possibilities curve, because if they maximize their resources, they can get to the production possibilities curve. There's no way they can get outside of it with the current amount of resources that they have. So let's take a look now at some of the trade-offs that occur. So A and B represent trade-offs. A produces more guns, as you can see, and B produces more butter. So let's say we're moving from B to A. So the opportunity cost of A equals the decrease in butter, 1,100 units. So as you go from B to A, you can see you're giving up 1,100 butter. That's the opportunity cost. The opportunity benefit is 600 guns. The opportunity cost of B equals the decrease in guns, 600 units. So as you move from A to B, you're giving up 600 guns. That's your opportunity cost, and the opportunity benefit is going to be 1,100 butter. That's what you're gaining. Now, there are 5 variables that can actually shift the production possibilities curve outward. And these are very, very good for an economy because when the production possibilities curve shifts outward, don't necessarily need to trade off between making guns and butter, for example. They can actually make more guns and more butter, and we'll see that in a little bit. But these are 5 of the best things for an economy. They promote long-run economic growth. First of all, you have an increase in the productive labor force, productivity. If people can make more, then there's more to go around. You have economic growth, and the production possibilities curve is going to shift outward. An increase in quantity and quality of natural resources, that's going to shift the production possibilities curve to the right. One thing to keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, this is pretty much a hard and fast rule in economics, is if you have an increase, the curve shifts to the right. A decrease, the curve shifts to the left. Okay, increase right, decrease left. So an increase in the production possibilities curve is going to shift the curve to the right. That could come from, example, an increase in quantity and quality of natural resources. An increase in the quantity and quality of capital could shift the production possibilities curve to the right. You have an increase in the production possibilities curve. An increase in health and education could shift the production possibilities curve to the right. An increase in technology can shift the production possibilities curve to the right. Now, if we had a decrease in productive labor force, a decrease in the quantity and quality of national resources, etc., that could actually shift the production possibilities curve to the left, because you would have a decrease in the production possibilities curve. So let's take a look at what this might look like. So we have a production possibilities curve. We're trading off between guns and butter. Guns are on our y-axis, butter is on our x-axis. So our original production possibilities curve was in red. And then we had the increase in the production possibilities curve. It shifted to the right. And there's several reasons this might have happened. The labor force might have gotten better at making guns and butter. They might have become more productive. They might have had more land to produce guns and butter. They might have had better factories to produce guns and butter. They might have been better educated about how to produce guns and butter, and they might have better gun butter producing technology. Any of those things, any of those factors could increase the production possibilities curve and shift it to the right. So now what happens is this economy can make more guns and more butter. They're not necessarily having to trade off between it. They can actually make more of both. And like I said, if the opposite happened, if you had the destruction of factories or people became less educated or something like that, the production possibilities curve could shift to the left as well. All right, so let's go ahead and do the assessment. So number 1, we're going to describe a trade-off you've made in the past. A choice you made in the past. What was the opportunity cost of that trade-off? What was the most important thing you gave up when you decided to make that choice? And for 2, we're going to describe a factor that would shift the production possibilities curve to the left. So we would have a decrease in the production possibilities curve. So we talked about the 5 factors that can go ahead and increase it, shift it to the right. Now take the opposite of one of those factors. That would decrease it to the left. You don't have to do the opposite of all 5. You can only do 1. And then give me that factor, and then go ahead and shift that production possibilities curve to the left. So be sure you graph your original curve and your shifted curve. As far as what you want to put on your XY axis, you can put guns and butter. That's pretty typical. Apples, oranges, whatever you want. That's pretty fine with me. As long as it's clean and legal, I'm okay with it. All right, great. If you need to pause this video for a little bit, that's perfectly fine. And for the summary, let's go ahead and describe what you've learned today. And I'm going to go ahead and check these tomorrow. Hope you have a good one. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.